When little Bert, for Bertrand, poor kid, was only in 6th grade, Carol moved into the house next door. Of course, as is usually the case, he didn't want to associate with her because she was a girl and boys didn't play with girls. However, Carol soon found that she liked Bert a lot, and so she persisted in warming him to a friendship. It wasn't very long before they were virtually inseparable except for when she was with her girlfriends, and by the 8th grade, her time seemed about equally split between Bert and them. It wasn't like she had a crush on him or anything. She wasn't boy crazy like some girls. And while he did take some flack about being seen with her on a platonic level, their friendship persisted and grew to the point that they were like loving brother and sister and yet not. There was always something different about their relationship. Bert had tried to figure it out many times. He was far from stupid, and yet he couldn't figure why he was so attracted to Carol or how he had bonded with her so loyally. What was even stranger to him was how she managed to get him to play house with her, and how he had even taken somewhat of a liking to playing with her dolls and girl toys. She played the mommy most of the time, but she noticed how tender he was with the dolls, and so she sort of conned him into trading off with her and playing the mommy on occasion. He really wasn't that bad at it, affecting the mannerisms he had seen in women, and so the occasional trade-off became common during that year, and his nurturing instincts, if he had any, were fostered and improved upon. Of course his dad had always given him boy stuff and he played with it, pretending to be a dozer driver or something like the other boys, but he came to really prefer playing with Carol and her dolls. Naturally, they grew out of the let's pretend phase and hot into video games, and Carol's mother, Alice Conrad, twice divorced, seemed to have no problem with them playing up in her room right from the start. By this time, Carol was old enough to take care of herself pretty much, so Alice didn't have a problem with leaving her home during her 4 to 12 shift at the hospital. After all, Carol was old enough to earn money babysitting, so she was old enough to babysit herself. She knew Bert's mother and dad were right next door if there was a problem, and had a loose arrangement with them. Time passed and Carol and Bert progressed through 3 years of high school with not a heck of a lot changing. Do you realize we've been hanging out since the 6th grade and never even dated once, Carol? Yes, I know it's weird, Bert, but here we are about to graduate this year. You're my very best friend. It's so strange how close we are and yet we're not romantically involved. The other girls are always on my case about it 'cause you're so cute with those big blue eyes and long blonde hair. I do love you, you know? I know, Carol, and I love you too. It's so strange when I'm with you. I feel different somehow. It's almost like we're girlfriends or something. I mean, we go shopping and you tell me I have great taste in clothes, well, girl clothes anyway, and I love to see you enjoying all those slinky things and your high heels and all, and I have to admit that lately I've had some problems sorting out my feelings about a lot of things. I don't understand, Bert. What are you getting at? I'm not sure myself, Carol, but I guess if I were really going to be honest with myself, I'd have to say I think I'm a little jealous of you. Me? Whatever for? I don't know. You're so attractive and fun to be around, and we're almost the same size, which I guess makes me an 8. Well, hon, you've always been a 10 in my book, laughing. But what does your dress size have to do with anything? That's just it. I don't know. And why are we even talking about my dress size? I've never worn a dress in my life. Then out of the blue, wanna take me out on a date? I know we've never done it, but I've been wondering what it would be like. Really? US? On a date? Sure. Why not? I don't know. I think I might feel like I was dating my sister. Well, we are kind of like sisters, aren't we? We've done girl stuff as long as I've lived here. I guess I can't deny that, but I didn't mean it like that, and you know I've never had a date. I wouldn't know how to act. Let's try it anyway, Bert. It might be fun. Who knows, we have so much in common, much more than living next door and video games. Yes, and dolls and your mom teaching us how to cook too. And you have such great taste in clothes, Bert. I swear I'm one of the best dressed girls in school because of your help and good taste. I just know some of them are jealous of me because I have a personal fashion counselor. You really should consider going into designing women's clothes. Blushing, gee, thanks, Carol. I don't quite know how to respond to that one. You know, Bert, it's a shame you can't share in any of the lovely things you pick out for me. I really feel badly about that. We've shared so much these last 4 years. Want to go to a movie Friday? Sure. All right, said Carol. I'll drive, but I want you to come over a little early. I have a little surprise for you. For me? I love surprises. I hope you love this one too, said Carol. Okay. See you in school tomorrow. It was 2 days until our date and I was on pins and needles about what Carol's surprise was going to be. She could be so mysterious sometimes. So Friday I went over about 7 as the movie didn't start till 8. It was the middle of July and pretty hot even at night, so I wore my dark shorts and a short-sleeved shirt with a tank tee underneath and a pair of sandals. As usual, I went up to her room with her. She had a surprise for me, all right. We'd no sooner gotten in her room than she went over to her chest of drawers and pulled out a pair of red satin hip-hugger panties with wide white lace around the legs and waist. Holding them up in front of me, she said, "Bert, honey, I want you to wear these on our date." Boy, Carol, when you say you have a surprise, you don't fool around. Those are your best satin panties. We just bought them last week. I know. That's why I want to share with you. I think it's a crime that you can't enjoy some of the pretty things you pick out, and I haven't worn these yet. Will you do it for me? Please? I promise you can take them right off if you don't like how they feel or how they make you feel. Carol, I'm not one of those guys. At least, I don't think so. I never said you were Bert, and neither am I, but I wanted to share how wonderfully sensuous they feel with you. You may find you really do like them. Please wear them? Oh, all right. If it means that much to you, I suppose I can stand it for one night. And so I undid my shorts and, turning around modestly, pulled up those luscious panties over my almost hairless legs. Well, it would be a little difficult for me to describe the feelings I experienced donning those panties for the first time. They were a little stretchy and I pulled them up slowly, feeling every inch of my skin tingle. My head swam a bit and I found myself becoming rather excited by the whole thing. It was obvious that my manhood, make that my boyhood, offended the panties somewhat and in a way I would have never considered, and so I carefully tucked myself away as best I could and hiked them up tightly, and the bulge was minimal. The idea that I'd be out in public with those beautiful panties on under my shorts was more of a turn on than most of my ridiculous sexual fantasies. I worried about my panty line showing, but the excitement overshadowed that fear. It was then that I knew I was in some trouble. I liked them more than I wanted to admit to Carol, more than I would admit to her, more than I could admit to myself right then. They were so smooth and sexy feeling. I ran my hand over my tush and hips, and then to my utter surprise, Carol stood right in front of me and did the same to me. I felt flushed and indeed must have been blushing fiercely as she looked straight into my eyes and asked, "Well?" It was then I realized we were exactly the same height, 5 feet 6 inches. I was rather at a loss for words, so rather than grope for the appropriate response, I simply pulled up my shorts, feeling them slide sensuously over my new underwear. Carol had a huge grin on her face as I finally managed, "Thank you, Carol. They do feel wonderful. I'll wear them." "Well, in that case, dear heart, they are a gift. They are now yours to keep. I want you to have them and wear them when we go out." "Okay. They do feel really sexy. Maybe you'll let me get you some more," she asked. "I don't know. Maybe. I really shouldn't be doing this, you know. You just need a little modification in your attitude, sweet cheeks." And so we had our first date, a movie and a sundae. We went out again the following weekend, this time to a drive-in movie, Fast Disappearing, one of the last of its kind in our area. She had already been shopping and gotten me 6 more of those slinky panties just like the red ones in white and made me promise to wear them from now on all the time, and I did so, even though the thought of Mom's warning about clean underpants in case I was in an accident came to mind. I laundered them by hand and hung them in my closet to dry. On our second date, it became quite clear that Carol's idea of sharing with me was not going to stop with panties and would likely progress to other light, silky, feminine clothing, something that scared the living hell out of me, and yet, well, they were very nice. I had no idea how she was going to manage it, but my resistance was already in trouble. I'm afraid I was becoming susceptible to her suggestions. That was nothing new, not really. How else could you get a boy to play house and be the mommy? Sure enough, this week she talked me into a plain white blouse and a pair of her dress Bermuda shorts and a pair of her Air Step sandals in white leather with a very slight wedge heel. They weren't the light, strippy kind, and so I wore them. They had an adjustable vamp, but I didn't need to adjust them. We had the same sized feet too. How weird! The blouse was nylon/polyester and the shorts were light tan cotton with pleats and a 3/4-inch belt. Thank heaven they had a fly. It went the wrong way, but at least they had one. They didn't look that different from boys actually, but we knew, and that's what made it exciting. The crepe was opaque enough that I didn't need an undershirt and it felt wonderful against my skin. The shorts did accentuate my waistline more than I would have liked though. The next time we were at the mall and stopped into Victoria's Secret, she asked my opinion about a push-up bra. I gave it my stamp of approval. It too was all satin and lace. Very sexy, I thought. I liked to see Carol in sexy clothes, and yes, I had seen her in her bra and panties on many occasions. I wondered how it would look on her when she showed it to me, and she bought it without even trying it on. A few nights later, when we were playing on her computer, she got it out of her drawer and, holding it up in front of me with that attitude, made me put it on. I say she made me, and I did protest about this increasing feminization, but I did it anyway. Somehow, she managed to arrange my soft, slightly puffy and totally non-muscular chest into that bra in such a way that it looked entirely convincing, even to me. So there I stood in sexy panties and bra. Well. Then she had me put on her shorts again with a hot pink satin blouse and the sandals. What I didn't quite have a grip on was how convincing her arguments seemed to be for getting me into these things each time she got me into something else of hers. Now I had my own bra, and I must say it looked very, how should I put it, appropriate under the blouse, even on me. I was wearing a panties and a bra. Now I knew I was in trouble. I reasoned that this was having a sexual effect on me in more ways than one. Darned if it wasn't somewhat pleasant though. Well, I reasoned, I could always just say no like in the anti-drug ads. And for the life of me, I really did try to, but I could see that she was sincere in her intentions to share some of the delights of femininity, and I didn't want to disappoint her. Please don't ask me why. I really didn't know. She really wanted me to experience all these lovely things in a sisterly way, and I thought it really was sweet of her and a harmless little diversion. It was a good thing I didn't have to take physical education as a senior, or my new undies would have done me in for sure. Of course, I only wore the bra at her house, at least until it got cold enough for a heavy jacket. Then I wore it whenever we went out together. I suppose my longer hair helped my rather feminine image too. It turned out that most of our early dates were to movies and other dark places, and she could dress me in some more screamingly feminine things. They proceeded to get silkier and sexier and more feminine every couple weeks. The fact was that I was rarely in a stitch of men's clothing when we went out anymore. She always managed to find something that would pass as masculine, she'd convince me, if people didn't look too closely, and people rarely do. It was time for school to start, and she had forbidden me to get a haircut all summer, so now my rather long and full head of hair was to my shoulders and tended to be a little straight and curl under at the bottom in a pageboy, which I'm afraid made it quite swingy, and I was forever reaching up with a finger in the manner of girls and putting some behind my ear to keep it out of my eyes. I always kept it clean and healthy, and she loved it longer. Her other girlfriends did too. I didn't mind the long hair. A lot of macho guys had hair that was longer, but about 2 weeks before school, she took me to a jeweler and had my ears pierced and tiny pearls put in. My protests were in vain as usual. She was very good at selling her ideas for my self-improvement and enrichment. I admit that I rather liked the look of the longer hair, especially with the earrings. After they healed, she gave me a pair of 2-inch gold hoops, and I liked that look even more. Of course, the image I was seeing in her mirror, breasts, hair, earrings, all were quite disquieting because I was really beginning to truly enjoy these things. By this time, Carol had me convinced that it wasn't a sin for a boy to really enjoy some pretty things. After all, the fashion, hair and cosmetics industries had long ago conned men into hairspray, mousse, cologne, skin lotions, hair color, earrings, necklaces, and bracelets, so why should I be different? I'd even seen a few in the unisex salon getting facials. One night, she said she wanted to do some shoe shopping, and we went to a large self-serve store in the mall that was having a close-out on summer sandals. As we cruised the size 7 aisle, I pointed out a number of various styles that I thought would look cute on her. The first pair she tried though was a pair of high-heeled loafers. They had to have 2-inch heels but were blocky and not very sexy at all. Like them, Bert? Not my idea of very feminine, I said. Good. Step out of mine and into these. No. Yes, Bert. This is just another way of my sharing. Just do it. It was not really a request. So, I did. Boy, was that different. All right, now walk down the aisle and see how they feel. I did. Don't be so stiff. Well, they feel just fine, but I have to wiggle my tush. Fine. About time you learned. Take them off and put them in the cart. So, I did. Since I was being forced into this situation, it was a little less traumatizing. We found a pair of sandals we both liked. Again, it was my feet that tried them on. This time, they were strippy, sexy, semi-high wedge heels. I was really nervous about trying on girls' shoes, but I liked them. They would have looked nicer with painted nails, but I had knee-high hose on anyway. I told Carol of my concerns. It was a very short discussion. We put them in the cart. Bert, think about this. Your hair, earrings, the way you're dressed? Nobody is going to think a thing. Oh. Yes, when you put it that way, it seems more logical. I suppose I do look a bit girlish. She just smiled. Girlish indeed, my sweet thing, and we've only just begun to liberate you, she thought naughtily. We also got me a pair of regular penny loafers and I thought we were through, but as we were passing the dress pumps near the front of the store, we both spotted the same pair of red calf, mid-heel pumps. They almost looked like patent leather. They had the latest version of the princess heel with the 3/4-inch lifts as opposed to the older spikes, a lot more stable and easier to walk in, so I was to find out. She looked at me. I looked at her. In that brief moment, I'm afraid it was decided. I tried them on. They looked smashing with the slacks I had on. Like them, Bert? Gee, Carol, what's not to like? They're a little lower than the loafers and I love the way the vamp is cut so sexy with a little toe cleavage. God, Carol, I think I'm getting off on them. Walk down the aisle for me. Loosen up, Bert. Heels need a little hip action. I did as I was told and sure enough, they felt good and I found I could actually walk in them. Wear them out of the store, she said. Are you serious? No, I'm Carol, giggle. Are you serious is an Australian actor. But yes. All right, but if we see anybody we know, I'm toast. You know that. They'll get over it, she said. When I laid the shoes on the counter, the clerk said, will that be all, ladies? Totally ignoring that because there was no innuendo attached, no, said Carol. And then she popped over and grabbed a shoulder bag to match my new red pumps. And so I wore them the rest of the evening and carried the bag even though it was empty, save for my wallet, even to the movie, but I drew the line at the malt shop where she let me wear my new penny loafers. They were higher but not so blatantly feminine. And on our first date after school began, as cooler weather comes rather overnight in the mountains, she introduced me to another sensual pleasure. 2 days before that, it had been in the low 100s and today it was in the 70s and would stay there for a while until it really got cold. It was already in the 50s in the more northern states. No one at school had picked up on anything unusual, or at least they hadn't made a fuss about it. I'd always been a bit on the nerdy side anyway, and the kids expected me to be a little eccentric hanging with girls. I even wore my pants a little low so I wouldn't accentuate my smallish waist. The last time we went to the drive-in I complained that the ladies' slacks left me a little on the cool side. Well, she had the answer for that too. We weren't going to a movie this time but to a football game and she gave me a pair of heavy dancing tights to keep me warm. Again, the sensations of putting on those tights over my panties were almost too much for me. Sleek, slick, silky and sexy. I could feel every cell of my legs being caressed by them, even under the chic blue jeans I would be wearing that night. She was right, of course. I was toasty. I should have known. I had gotten a job at Joe's Pharmacy when I was just 17. This was, of course, after Carol had changed my mind about a few things. They put me to work just stocking and cleaning up, but within a few months, one of the girls quit and they needed somebody on the front register and so gave me a shot at it as I was now familiar with the store. I liked the customer contact and I could type and count, and it was a rare day when I came up a penny short, so they let me stay there and hired another kid as a stock boy. My new clothing and hair and earrings and all of it carried right over into my job, of course. I was not going out of my way to look macho these days, quite the opposite, probably. Joe's wasn't Joe's anymore. The pharmacist and owner was a gal named Patricia Norman. She was the one who had hired me in the first place. Being a woman, and by now realizing that women were by nature more observant than men, I figured one of these days I was going to get canned if things continued into more blatant outer garments. Well, that wasn't anything to worry about now. I only worked 3 nights a week, and that afforded me about a $50 paycheck every week before taxes, and I had a pretty nice savings account and even my own checking account. I'd been buying my own clothes ever since I started, not the job, the lingerie, etc. My folks even let me buy a little Toyota. The insurance was about $50 a month, but that was only 1 week's salary and there was plenty left over. Wearing my new undies all the time seemed to be having an effect on how I interacted with people though, especially at work where my peer group seldom came. I was still doing my best to act macho, but underneath I could feel myself losing something I never quite had a grasp of or understood anyway, but wanted to maintain, I think. Hell, I'm not really so sure anymore. I know it was with tender, loving care that Carol was treating me to all these new sensations, or seemed so, but I was really becoming afraid that I had gone one step too far already, that somehow, I was now addicted to feminine clothing and lingerie. I suppose I was after all, and wondered what my next new delight would be. It was at once an elating and revolting personal revelation. I had to face the fact that I really liked feminine clothing on my own body. At the least, I was by definition a transvestite now. I know she hadn't meant to harm me and I didn't feel harmed really, but I was no longer the Bert I had known earlier last summer. I had changed not only in my clothing but in my being. I suppose you could make an easy argument for my not ever being really all boy, but I had made a stab at it. I could feel myself slipping slowly into feminine mannerisms as well, gesturing more with my hands in a soft, non-jerky manner and being more demonstrative around people, especially Carol's and now my girlfriends, and allowing my voice a wider range of expression. That was really scary because it all felt so comfortable all of a sudden, and it was so easy to fall into that feminine mode when I was around so many girls anyway. It isn't reasonable that scary and comfortable should reside side by side, but they did. So now I was wearing pantyhose, panties, girls' jeans and slacks, and occasionally even a blouse to school, occasionally even to work, and never had any boy clothes on over the weekends. I now kept my hair in a ponytail most of the time, which made my earrings even more evident, but nobody seemed to mind. I thought it made me look just too feminine to leave it down, as it was now brushing my shoulder blades. Nobody could really tell my new loafers were high-heeled with my long slacks on, and I didn't wear them to school, not at first. It was then that I realized that except for makeup and my bra, Carol had me dressing completely as a girl all the time now, and yes, I'm afraid acting like one too, especially on our dates, which were sometimes with a couple other girls. I never knew a bunch of girls could have such a good time. No wonder boys seemed sort of optional. Wow. I just said a couple other girls. How did I mean that? Was it other girls or other girls, including myself with them? And it was becoming harder and harder to part with my pretty things on Monday mornings. Naturally, Lena and Joan knew how I was dressing too, and they thought it was neat. I wore my ponytail up and tied in a ribbon now when we were out, even in the daytime. We were at the local pizza joint after a football game, and the waiter came over and asked, "Well, what can I do for you girls tonight?" I just looked up at him with my big, blue doe eyes and smiled. I didn't want to embarrass anyone, so I just kept my mouth shut, but we had a good giggle over it afterwards. My drawers and some of my hangers were now laden with feminine things. Thank heaven Mom had encouraged me to do my own washing some time ago. Now, I did it willingly. I always kept the boyish stuff on top of the hamper and at the front of the closet. I gave up boys' shoes completely though in favor of the lightweight girls' loafers, casuals and moccasins, and when the really cold weather hit, got myself some girls' sport boots and high-top sneakers. They weren't really that much different than the boys, but we all knew that they came straight from the ladies' aisle, and that made it more fun. It was a running joke among the four of us. I was beginning to feel a little sexy and feminine and special and accepted by our little group, and now whenever any of us were out together, sometimes I wore my hair in a braid, My manner of dress became an inside joke, and it was both fun and tantalizing being feminine and yet not quite. It was kind of like all those androgynous bands like Boy George and David Bowie who even wore 4-spike heel boots on stage. At this point, I had never worn makeup. Bert, you have to admit now how nice the things you choose for me are, right? Yes. How could I deny it now? Well, I want to give you something for your birthday a little early. What? Open the box. Oh, Carol, these are beautiful, but how can I wear girls' pajamas and mules and robe at home? Has your mom said anything so far about your girl clothes? No. Do you really think she is so blind she hasn't noticed? I've been pretty careful, but truthfully, I hadn't given it much thought. You're probably right. She did say she liked the shorts outfit you gave me and made a comment about how cute the sandals were, and she did use the word cute. I haven't been all that careful lately, and for sure she sees what I'm wearing, including the shoes and boots. She's always pretty much treated me like the daughter she wanted anyway, much to my father's distaste. He probably thinks I'm gay. Then what will change? Yeah, I see your point. I suppose I could enjoy them as long as I didn't rub my dad's nose in it. All right. I'll wear them and thank you again. Kiss, your lips taste raspberry, Carol. Do you like it? Yummy. Well, here, try some, and in a flash she had my lips a rosy frost raspberry, both looking and tasting. Then she got into it and applied some gloss over it and kissed me again. Yes, that does taste good. A little different on you though. Sit. I sat at her vanity and she plucked my eyebrows just a little and filled them in and mascaraed my lashes. There now. That's better. I looked in the makeup mirror. Bert was history. A little lipstick and eye makeup and I was a different person, almost a girl. Now I knew what I meant by other girls. Now I saw easily the waiter's mistake, but was it a mistake? Was I still really a boy? I certainly still had the sex of a boy, but what about my gender? We had sex education in school and I knew they were two different things. Holy cow, is that me? Oh my, Bert honey. I'm sorry. I think I've gone too far. I think I've just lost my best boyfriend. What do you mean? Just look at you, honey, that face. You look like a blonde, blue-eyed Terry Hatcher. Superman would be taken with you, and with your Batgirl training from Halloween, you even talk and squeal like Terry. Those eyes. A man could drown in those deep blue pools. Oh, come on, Carol. Don't mind me. Just doing a little fantasizing. Bert honey, we can just no longer put up with that name in our little circle of girlfriends. Do we not have more fun than you ever did with boys? You know we do. Well then, how about Beth instead of Bert? Bethany and Williams. How's that? Spooky, giggle, but I like it. Okay. I'm Beth, but heaven help me, how did this get this far? I don't know, hon, but you certainly seem happier lately. I'm beginning to think there must be a natural girl inside you somewhere that was just waiting for the right moment. How does it feel to be Beth? Wonderful. How do I look? Like my girlfriend Beth, who could stand just a few more lessons in Girl 101 before we let her completely loose on the world, so you really can be my best girlfriend. You mean it? I asked, a bit incredulous. Listen, my mom's been making me take birth control pills ever since I was 16. At least, that's what SHE thinks. I never take them and have over 2 years worth stashed away, and Lena doesn't take hers either. How about you taking them instead? That's silly, Carol. I can't get pregnant. No, but what they really are is female hormones that are supposed to fool your body into thinking you're already pregnant so the egg and sperm aren't as friendly. I'll bet by graduation we could have you into a really perfect size 8 or 9 considering how stacked your mom is. Try them. You'll like them. Carol, well, I knew that when Bert began taking the pills, things would happen, so I plunged in where angels fear to tread. One day when I had Beth over at the house, I told Mom what I wanted to do. She wasn't terribly surprised that I wanted to help my friend, but she was really pissed that I hadn't taken the pills. One day, right in front of her mom, she said, "Mom has approved you're taking my birth control pills, so now we don't have to play around about it." Carol, I screamed. Well, I don't fool around, so it just seemed like a waste of time. I saved them though, and since they are female hormones, I'll bet we could have Beth up to a size 6 panty and an unpadded bra by Christmas, surely by Valentine's Day. What do you think? I think when the police come, I don't want to know anything about this, she said, smiling. And so my accelerated transition began. You've always had a rather strange shape for a boy anyway. How about it? Want to give it a shot, feel the full effect of femininity, boobs, butt and all? I think you'll love it, but if you don't you can stop and it will go away, mostly. I promise you can quit anytime if you don't like the results or how you feel. What do you mean mostly? Well, you'll probably still look sort of feminine, and unlearning girl 101 and 102 isn't quite as easy as learning it. And you can teach me all I need to know about being a girl? I've had 17 years practice. Besides, I don't want to get us in trouble either. Do you think I can really be pretty? Sweetheart, you're already too pretty. It can only get better. Your skin will change. Your body will change, and so will your head. You're going to give us all competition, but we'll try to be gracious about it. I'm willing to chance it. What do you mean about my head? Oh, you'll find it difficult to think like a boy and you'll react like a girl is all. It's quite painless, really. You'll hardly notice it happening, but I'm afraid other people will. I was doomed, happy, but doomed. Months pass. Bethany is bursting forth all over, but the culmination was donning Carol's prom gown with full makeup. I looked into the mirror, time stood still, forever it seemed, and yet was compressed into seconds, had a delightful pulsation in my panties and fainted. The next thing I knew, both Carol and her mother were standing over me, and Carol had applied a cold compress to my forehead. Mrs. Conrad said, "Is she going to be all right?" I'm sure she is, Mom. It was just the shock of seeing herself in a formal for the first time. You are all right now, aren't you, Bethany? Yes, Carol, I'll be okay. Mrs. Carlton, I'm so terribly sorry. I shouldn't be like this. Nonsense, dear. Carol and I have talked about your nature before, and heaven knows I've seen how you've changed these past months. It's positively amazing, but I'm not the least shocked. I think she's right. Now, why don't you girls finish dressing and come down for some lemonade and we'll have a nice chat? All right, Mom, we'll be right down. I can't believe this, Carol. Look at me. Yes, I know. I just wish you'd take my advice and wear some pretty dangle earrings more often. Here. Try this print crepe with the A-line skirt. It will add a little flair to your hips, and do keep the pumps on. Oh, Carol, this is too much. I'm almost too excited to move. Well, you'll never master slender high heels if you don't move, so get a wiggle on, and I do mean that literally. Carol put on a skirt and blouse and we went downstairs. Well, Beth, I think you look just darling in Carol's dress and pumps, and I want you to know that it's all right anytime you want to work on your girl skills to come over and practice. Mrs. Conrad, I don't know what to say. I think I'd love that. I suppose I do need to learn how to manage in a dress. Actually, Mom, Carol interjected, she's been practicing for months and she's almost there. She even goes to work as Beth now and is completely accepted as a girl by her boss and the customers. In fact, Mr. Blaisdell, our principal, gave her an ultimatum to decide who she's going to be or leave school. Well, dear, just try saying things in a little softer register like we taught you for Halloween with more inflection, and I think you'll pass nicely anywhere, and for Pete's sake, decide to be Beth for good. Oh, I see. Thank you. I'll practice. You mean like more from the throat instead of the chest? Exactly, and with more highs and lows. If you must scream, make that from the throat also. Okay, and I really don't think there is much choice anymore. I'm going to end up as Beth. I really like the new me, but it began so innocently with just a pair of Carol's panties. You started this, Carol? Yes, Mom, but look how neat it's turned out. I just wanted to share with my best friend, that's all, so I began to share, and Beth sort of just blossomed after a while. Are you angry with me? No, honey, just surprised. The damage, so to speak, is done now, a fait accompli. You aren't angry, are you, Beth? Are you kidding, Mrs. Conrad? I just want to keep going to the end of the rainbow now. I understand you are taking Carol to the prom? Yes, she just asked me this week. Mom, do you think she could get away with wearing my beige chiffon and high heels to the prom? Sure, honey. I can't see her going in a tux. She'd look ridiculous with those B-cup breasts. Then you'll at least be the same height. This should be fun, although I wouldn't ordinarily approve of you dating another girl, Carol, laughing. She's barely aware of herself yet, Mom. She's still a little bit Bert, but we can fix that, can't we? If that's what she wants, we can. You two are really overwhelming me, and please stop talking about me like I'm not here, okay? I feel so tingly and strange like this, and yet it feels really great. Yes, I think I would like to try being all that I can be, like the army says. This is more fun than I've ever had in my entire life. Well, then, I have a little confession to make. You know, Beth, you have what they call an androgynous body already. I think that is a definite possibility. You could go to the New Year's ball as sisters next year. However, you have a lot to learn, young lady, before you venture forth into the real world full-time. Mother Carlton and Carol will help you. Sure. I'll do it, but first I need to master the heels. Oh, we'll have that down in no time. It's the rest of getting rid of Bert that is the challenge. Mrs. Conrad. May I ask you a question? Certainly, honey. How come you are okay with turning me into a girl? The world needs more gentle spirits like you, Beth. Have you ever met Carol's father? No. Well then, you wouldn't really understand our position, but you two have been like sisters forever anyway. This is just a matter of a little clothing and deportment adjustment. Maybe, but what about my parents? How do you think your parents feel about you now? I think my dad thinks I'm a sissy anyway, and Mom just doesn't pay that much attention, or, if she does, she doesn't much care. Well then, if you turn out to be a girl, they won't be that surprised, will they? No, I suppose not, and I'll be 18 next month anyhow. I can do what I want to now. What kind of job are you looking for, Beth? Oh, I've already got a pretty good one, Mrs. Conrad. I've got a job with a catalog company taking phone orders and doing some typing and filing. That's wonderful, dear. Start working on that voice, and when people start calling you miss on the phone, you'll know you've made it. I think we can make your feminine presence overwhelming, but the phone is the final test. Now, we just have to start doing something drastic with that hair, don't you think, Carol? I think I should take her to Sherry at the mall and let her get a cute haircut, something easy to take care of and just borderline boyish. Would that be okay, Beth? If being a girl feels as good as this, I don't think I care what happens to me otherwise. I had some big decisions to make over the weekend, but I made them all by myself, Mrs. Conrad's suggestion notwithstanding. I showed up for school Monday morning dressed in the usual chic jeans with knee-highs and flats, a light blue long-sleeve jersey blouse with double ruffles down the front, dangle earrings, hair in a ponytail tied with a blue ribbon, and full makeup. The die was cast. A lot of the kids didn't recognize me, but the in-crowd did and gave me hugs. It didn't take Mr. Blaisdell 2 periods to hear about me, and I found myself once again in his office. Well, young lady, I see you finally slid off the fence. I shouldn't say this, but you are very attractive. Is that, Yes, sir. I've been hiding myself as best I could. Well, what is your new name? What do we call you now? I'd like to graduate as Bethany and William, sir. Fine. Now that is settled, I can get some sleep. I was afraid you were going to give me an ulcer. Your records will be changed at once. Have your mother call me and I'll tell her how to change your birth certificate and your name legally. At this point, the certificate will still have to read male, but the name can be changed. What you do about the rest of the situation is none of my business. That's all. Enjoy your new life, but be a good girl, understand? Yes, sir. I don't think you have to worry about that. None of the boys would even touch me. Don't be too sure, Beth. I left his office on cloud 9 and January 2nd. 9 wasn't high enough. Finals were in 2 weeks and the prom was in 3, and I was going in a cocktail dress and heels. I was giddy. Wow. The school was abuzz the balance of the week, but it settled down, and then I was just another chick, a distinction I never dreamed I wanted. I wore dresses. Dad gave up completely at last and even began calling me Beth, while Mom and I grew ever closer day by day. I never knew she cared that much, but maybe it was just having an effeminate son that had bothered her. We never talked about it. She coached me too, and before finals, I was indistinguishable from any other girl in manner or dress, and finally, I did have some very pretty dresses in my closet as well as sexy lingerie along with pretty shoes. My nails were now quite long and always painted, and I could now use my hands and be as expressive as I pleased. My voice was a smooth, high contralto after a lot of coaching by Carol and her mom. I confessed to Mom how I had come to change my body, and she took me to her gynecologist and got me proper hormones. Dr. Farina thought that time-release shots would be best under the circumstances and showed me how to do my own every 2 weeks. I felt another growth spurt coming on before the prom. I was sore and my nipples were hard all the time. They showed through absolutely everything I wore. Oh, well. By prom time, Bert's testes were back inside me and his little penis didn't even require a control panty. I swear it was back to about the size it was when Bert was about 8 or 9, and I thought that was just lovely. It was a useless appendage, and it crossed my mind, what do you need this for, Beth? I couldn't answer that one except with, nothing, it's just in the way, I guess. Carol and I did date for the prom, sort of. We went together at least. I wasn't jealous when she danced with all those boys who didn't have dates, and I felt very special in her dress. She said I had great legs, especially in heels. The cleavage wasn't too shabby either. We didn't get to go home together though. Tom Perry took her out afterwards, and home, and Paul Grant, among several others, who had bravely asked me to dance, knowing full well who and what I was, apparently rather fancied me, and he took me out later as well and home. He opened doors for me and treated me like a perfect gentleman should. He was tall, about 6 feet at least, and rather cute, I thought. Even in my spikes, he was 3 inches taller than me. It was an amazing, hassle-free night. With my hair piled high and my cleavage and dramatic makeup and long dangle earrings, Carol had told me I was quite fetching. Up to this point, I had actually considered Pamela's suggestion about she and I getting married after high school, but now, well, I was experiencing my first boy myself, and it was very, very stimulating. He held my hand when we walked and we talked, and I loved to hear the click of my spikes tapping as I walked with him. I was so terribly feminine with him that I wondered how I had ever managed to be a boy for so long. What Carol had told me was true. I couldn't think like a boy anymore, and I was reacting to Paul like any other love-struck female. He was very cute and charming and growing on me by the minute. When we got home, he rushed around to open my door, taking my delicate hand in his, and helped me exit the car. As he walked me to the door, he put his arm around my tiny waist. Mom had lovingly left the porch light off, and as we stood there in the moonlight, Paul took me in his arms and kissed me. It was my first kiss with a boy. It was long and deep, with my breasts pressing against his manly chest, and I loved it. Paul, Don't say anything, Beth, and with that, he kissed me again. I lost track of time. I was on tiptoe with my arms around his neck. The only thing running through my mind was, Paul, I think I want to bury your children. Geez, was I ever in trouble?